Hello everybody, it's time for another edition of ZBEST DIY camera equipment restoration videos. And today we're going to be looking at the Konica Auto S2 Revue model 35mm rangefinder camera. I'll take this out of the case here. And we'll remove this and we'll move the case aside. And this particular rangefinder was manufactured in the 1960s. I'll take the cap off as well. I just received this. I purchased this, and I was going to go through and clean up and do a restoration on it. It looks to be in relatively fair condition. As you can see, sometimes you'll receive some with writing on the bottom, or some type of numbers or that type of thing, and that's the case here. And the Revue is very similar to the Auto S2. The standard version, I'll show you a version of that right here. This is another Konica that I have, and you can see that they're quite similar if we move them around, and they're practically identical. Bottoms as well. This one I have the particular battery door off. I typically never store my cameras with batteries in them, and I leave the door off so that when I go out to shoot with them, the battery has to be installed, and you're putting in a fresh battery. But you can see these are very, very similar cameras. And the difference is this particular version has got the pull-out standard lens shade that came with the S2. This does not, although these do typically have them, but this one particular sample did not have that as well. I'll move this model aside, and what we'll do is we'll show some tips and steps in initially taking a look at a vintage camera that you might pick up and clean up and do the initial restoration. So I'm going to leave that here for now. This is a yellow filter that came with the camera, which will clean up and tidy up. So I'll leave that for the time being, and we'll get right to the restoration of the Konica Revue Auto S2. Okay, so we're going to go forward now and kind of talk a little bit about the Revue Auto S2 camera. This particular version has the Konica Hexanon 1.8 f1.8 lens, which is a very fast lens, terrific lens. The Konica lenses were well known for their sharpness, contrast, and clarity. Very fine lenses, and in the day when these were sold, these were really a great value for the camera that it was. It features a exposure window on top of the camera, as well as when you look inside and on the top area you could see the f-stops that you were working with. Has a self-timer. It's a rangefinder. It has a really nice large rangefinder window inside that you can look through and compose your pictures. The focus ring is here to the side, and this is pretty handy, this larger knob to grab and focus, fine focusing your camera. Has a nice film winder, large handle, typical of those in the day. It could tuck away from the body when it's not in use. And it also had a PC contact for a flash. No hot shoe was available on this particular model. And what is a particular note on this is this was the Revue brand that was, this was a actually subcontracted for the company in Nuremberg, Germany, known as Photoquell, which was a large retailer of camera and photographic equipment. Photoquell sold a variety of film cameras and other optical instruments such as binoculars and sighting mechanisms and produced these particular cameras under the name of Revue or RevueFlex. Over the years, these cameras were released in the European market, and they were retailed by Photoquell, who had the agreement, with Konica to manufacture sell the Revue brand, which was their own particular brand. And then also the company called Cosina would also manufacture for a Photoquell with licensing from Konica for the manufacture, of these cameras as well as many others. Cosina would manufacture cameras for many other brands over the years. Cosina would manufacture for camera companies such as Canon, Contax, Nikon, Olympus, Vivitar, and Yashica. And Cosina also manufactures the modern Voigtlander Bessa line of cameras and optics, along with the newly revived Zeiss Icon rangefinder camera and lenses today. So Cosina had a long history of manufacturing optical glass and cameras, and so this particular model, the Revue, was a 35mm camera. As you can see, the interior was pretty standard stuff for the day. Film pressure plate here. When you get one of these cameras, you got to make sure, like with any camera, that the pressure plate is still intact, because that keeps the film flat against the film gate here, and that makes sure that your pictures are sharp and you have a flat plane of clarity going over the entire format size of 35mm. So that's kind of a quick review of the camera we're working with. This went up to 500th of a second, all the way down to B or bulb, and that was for open timed exposures. You could put a shutter release cable here if you would like. Film counter wheel. You have a shoe, cold shoe they call it, for flashes, but you did have to attach. So if you are looking for a camera such as this, you do have to get a flash that is attached with the PC contact, they call it right here. This particular camera is a 55mm filter size, which is this particular filter. This actually came with the camera. This needs cleaning as well. We'll tidy that up as we go along. And then also your lens cap as well. Always a good idea to have a lens cap on your cameras so that you're protecting your lenses and you protect your investment. It's a very nice looking camera. It holds very well. It's a little bit heavier than some others, like the Yashica Electro 3.5 that was available in the day, and some of the Minolta products and Canons and things like that. But it's a really nice camera to hold. I really like these Konica Auto S cameras. They made a series of Konica Auto S. They have also the 1.6, which has faster 1.6 lens. These were limited manufacture with a 1.6 as well, but you can see they're very similar, other than the Konica name, which is typically here, and then this says Revue. And along with that, I'll just scoot these aside. Prior to these models coming out, you also had the Auto-S, which is previous. I'll take the lens cap off, and then this had the meter window off the lens. You can see on the later Konica S2s and S1.6s, the meter was built in around the lens. This is kind of a nice touch, so that when you added a filter, the camera was adjusting for the filter as well. When you had a filter on the cameras that did not have the meter here, you would have to compensate for the what they call filter factor, because of the transmission of light that was going through, or less transmission of light that was going through to the lens. So you had to compensate. So in other words, this might be a factor of 2, which, say for instance, if you're shooting 400 speed Ilford film, or some color film at say 400, you would have to rate that film on the ISO here at 200. So you would have to drop that down on either your handheld exposure meter, or on the camera itself, where you had put in down below what type of film you were using. The neat thing about these without the meter on the lens itself is that it was easier to access and to work on. All you do is remove the lens ring that's here. This has a lens ring as well, but your meter would be attached to the lens ring, so you'd have to be a little bit more careful about how you did it, or actually disconnect it or desolder it and then resolder it after you were working on that again. But these are a pleasure actually to work on. This also had a high and low capability, so if you were in regular lighting outdoors in the sun for regular shooting, you would put that onto the high setting. If you were in low light, which would allow it to be a little bit more sensitive when you went indoors, or if there was a low lighting situation, you'd put it to the L. Kind of an interesting feature back then, but these cameras, the later ones, had that built in so that their function was high or low already built in. So kind of a neat example of the cameras that were manufactured. But we're going to focus on the Revue today, so we'll get right into that. I'm going to remove the other two. I just wanted to share the other two Konica S series that they had along the years. There's another little view of that particular one. This is the Konica 1.6 with the faster lens. Really terrific camera. They had the same viewfinders basically. This had a little bigger lens, obviously. And then the similar but rebranded Revue Konica Auto S2. Okay, so we'll come back in a second, and we'll start to work on the Revue so that you can kind of see what we do when we get a camera and we start to clean that up or restore it.